Anne, how are you today?
Today, I'm very excited to be talking to you.
Excellent. My thoughts exactly. So without further ado, I think it's my absolute pleasure to be introducing all of you to Anne Bowden, the founder and CEO of Starling Bank, which all of you know has very, very successfully disrupted the UK's banking sector and is the first European challenger bank to buck the trend and to be able to turn a profitable business model. Now, Anne, it's absolutely great to have you. So time is precious. So let's kick off and start with some questions. First of all, I think the question everyone really wants to know is, how do you balance the various business objectives, when you think about scale? Is it focusing on customer numbers or balancing investors' expectations, the financial returns? How do you think about valuations or in terms of building a successful business model that can turn a profit? Because obviously you've done that.
Yeah, well, for Starling, sort of profitability has been one of our core objectives since the very, very beginning. But I think the first thing is that you have to consider your business development in stages. First of all, you have to find product market fit and you have to find your business model. And it's only when you've actually found your business model and that business model should be a profitable business model. Then you can put your foot down and scale that model and make sure that those numbers really do work. So I find lots of people talk about a future of profitability or valuation before they've actually tested that early business model. Because when we started Starling, we thought that the metrics would be different. It's only a couple of years into that business model, developing it, that we know what works and what doesn't work. And then we can actually scale that to create more profit and more value for our investors.
Right. And as you were going through that, you talked a lot about testing, right? Or finding that business model. How different or how much of a adjustment did you have to go through as you were going through? And how long do you think it took you till you found that aha moment in terms of this is the model that works?
Yeah, I think that took us a couple of years. I think that starting a bank is quite different from starting other businesses. You have to get the banking license first, and then you have to launch your customers, and then you have to grow that the customer base. And it's only really a couple of years in that you really have a really good feel on what works and what doesn't work. And then you can actually understand what those metrics are going to look like. For Starling, the big aha moment was that we were attracting customers who are very valuable customers. So many fintechs go after lower value customers that are very, very difficult to make profits from. Starling naturally attracted a more mature, more affluent customer base, which meant that we could scale those customers and become profitable. But that wasn't, we didn't know that early on. We thought that it would be a younger demographic or a less affluent demographic that would be attracted to Starling. But people love great technology solutions. People love solutions that that are resilient and are trustworthy, and customers trust us. And we attracted those customers that wanted a stable bank. And those customers have given us the path to profitability.
I think that's a very interesting point that you make. It's about quality of the customers or the value of the customers as opposed to simply a quantitative factor, which I think, as you see in the market, it's always about a numbers game, but then they always don't value the quality of the customers, which you seem to have got the magic solution there. And I think,
I think it's a combination. I think you have to have many customers, and you have to have high growth, and you have to have valuable customers, and you have to be seen as visionary and innovative. But you only find each of those factors one at a time. It isn't a big aha moment when all of a sudden you've got all those factors, and you've delivered it all together. You find one at a time, and you make sure as you add another factor, whether it is growth or whether it is valuable customers or whether it is innovation, you don't lose the other sort of secret sauce elements.
Yeah, I think that actually segues very well to the next point I was going to ask about. You talked about, building the business model or customer-centric business model suitable for those specific customers or adding on to the new ones. How do you ensure that you continually stay relevant to, the existing customers and adding new customers? What are some of the ways that, Starling has done it to increase its relevancy?
Yeah, we score very, very highly on all the government competition metrics where sort of banks customers are surveyed to find out what they think about their banks. And we do very, very well with those surveys, but that's the outcome of all the work we put in. What we're doing all the time is listening. The great thing is about being relevant to customers. And customers move on and evolve very quickly. So you must always be relevant. You must always be listening, and whether that's social media, whether it's customer contact center queries. You have to have those antennae out there, listening to what customers are saying, finding out what they like and what they don't like, and continuing to evolve that product. Starling's been around for 7 years. In that 7 years, customers have changed. So it's very, very important that you keep changing and evolving. You can't stand still. You have to be forward thinking.
So what are some of the techniques that you've done to do listening? You mentioned social media, you mentioned, customer call center. Are there anything that's out of the norm from what, say, the high street banks or typically do? Obviously, a much more digital model is quite different from a branch-based system, or how COVID has changed things in the last 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, I think the difference between Starling and some of the high street banks is, the CEO and founder and the senior management team actually talk to customers. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing like having that feedback. And the majority of that feedback is going to be people who want different or better. And if you surround yourself by people who are constantly challenging you to raise your delivery, to do better, to strive for more, that's stimulating. As many CEOs are surrounded by just the stats, or just people saying that they're great, or the demoralizing, situation of dealing with things that go wrong. I think it's very, very important to also have the inspiration from customers. The customers can say, if you only did this, our lives would be better. And that stimulus is really, really energizing.
Do you have it sounds like you made a point, which is, other CEOs wouldn't actually listen directly to their customers. There would be multiple layers. So it sounds to me that you've obviously been in the trenches in some form or another, or heard directly in terms of some of this feedback. Is there something specific that you could share, or there was a moment where I was like, oh, that really makes sense. I'm glad someone told me directly.
I think some customers, I remember being out for breakfast, and I was sitting there, answering, questions on Twitter that customers were posing, and the customers thought that I was a bot, and because because I was coming up with the answers at 7 o'clock in the morning to customers posing questions on Twitter. I think that entrepreneurial ventures and with founders that are really, really involved in making the product fantastic can occasionally surprise. And that's what I really enjoy. I really enjoy being able to, still be part of that customer experience and reach out to customers when things are going badly wrong or things were going right. But having that connectivity may not be able to scale when we are 100,000, 200,000, employees, but it definitely can work when we are at this level, because I really want to keep contact with the customer until and for the next iteration of development. We're on the start of the next phase, and those customers are out there telling us what's good and what's bad.
It's almost, I think you're absolutely right. The next thing is like, once you get to a certain scale, then, becomes a little bit harder for the CEO to be, in the trenches all the time, but every now and then you can still,
really
partake.
Yeah.
It's almost like you need to split the BAU operations and the new projects or the new enhancements into a few different groups, like a startup within itself.
Yeah, I work for large organizations, and I've always had, I've always been involved in getting in the customer experience. But this is a fantastic phase in the development of Starling, where we're coming out of the pandemic. Lots of things have changed. There's been a huge move to digital, and it is all going really well. So we are really keen to keep that contact with customers.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more that being customer centric is, the ultimate new driver, and using technology to enhance all that is the way to go forward. But one thing, when I was looking at your website that really caught my attention as being quite different from some of the other players in the market is something you do in terms of research and listening to the market, which you told me about. You have this initiative called Make Money Equal initiative. And some of the research, you've done depicts how men and women are usually depicted quite differently through photographs. Can you share a little bit about that? Because that was quite startling to me when I saw some of the findings. It was something that you see, but you don't consciously think about.
Yes, we are surrounded by images all the time, and those images influence how we think, and they're influencing women how they think. We've done a lot of research on how women are portrayed in the press when they in financial services or in money articles, and women are rarely portrayed as decision makers. Instead of frequently passive bystanders watching as men sign documents or shake hands. Men are often photographed with notes, fanning big wadges of cash. Women are more likely to be pictured with pennies and piggy banks.
Oh.
Yeah. Women are twice as likely as men to be pictured with a hot drink and potted plants. Which is symbolizing homeliness and leisure. But men are often shown, if men are actually shown as with a plant at all, is often a mini cactus. Really weird. So we thought that this imagery was actually holding back, people's thinking about money. So we launched an image library. So we got a fantastic photographer and producers to come up with this image library of lots of photographs of powerful images of women, and women of all ages and all backgrounds in dealing with money in a different way, not an infantile way. So we came up with this image library, and it's free to use, and you can go to our website. And if any journalist or any website or any blogger wants images that show a fairer, more diverse world, please go to that website and use that image, and it's free to use. So that is what we are doing to try to make money equal. Previously, we've done a lot of work on research and linguistics around people talking about money, but this is our campaign this year to get those images, get those photographs, get those magazines that talk about money to have more than just a picture of a woman with a hot drink and a potted plant, and have something that's a bit more respectful and a bit more grown up.
That's excellent. And thank you so much. I think bringing awareness, I was not aware. I'm going to look out for cactus and potted plants going forward, because I think the first thing to do is just bring awareness to everyone, right? And just to be more comfortable talking about money and not have that as being a subject that we're shy to talk about with our friends, and be comfortable with it. That was fabulous initiative, Make Money Equal. Everyone who's interested, please visit the Starling website. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, Anne. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. And thank you for all your sharing and your wisdom that you shared with us today. It's been great. And I look forward to talking again.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and have a great conference. It's a wonderful initiative, and thank you very much for inviting me.